Hey everyone, this is our lesson on population dynamics. Just an FYI, if you hear some weird music in this video, like faintly in the background, or you hear like just any weird noises, my child's baby monitor is right here, and I have to play music for him to get him to go to sleep. So just fair warning. All right, so let's talk about how population kind of interferes with ecology and ecosystems. And we're going to first talk about limiting factors. So every environment we know has both biotic, living, and abiotic, not living, factors that can possibly restrict the existence, number, reproduction, and or distribution of organisms in an area. So all of these factors are considered limiting factors because they are not they cause depletion in numbers, not an excess in numbers. So a limiting factor is any factor that restricts one of those four areas: existence, numbers, reproduction, or distribution. And these prevent a population from growing larger. So here's just a question on what are 10 limiting factors of any environment. And just some examples here. We have sunlight, fire, space, temperature, climate, water, food, other organisms, shelter, precipitation, soil type, mates, predators. Oh, let me go back. So you can look through this list and you can see certain ones are abiotic because they are not living things, and others are biotic. And for instance, like food, that could be biotic or abiotic, depending on what the organisms eat. So one thing that also affects population is predator-prey relationships. So if a certain prey becomes very prominent, then the predators may also grow and eat a lot of the prey. Well, then when that population of prey depletes, the predator no longer has food, so they kind of deplete. And you'll see they kind of follow each other in a pattern. So in this particular picture, we have a predator-prey relationship of a lynx and a hare. And once the predators decrease, prey population will increase, and then they just kind of follow. So if you look here, this blue line is the predator and the red line is the prey. So when the predator is high, the prey is low because limiting resources. Well, then as the predators start to decrease, the number of prey increases, and that causes an increase in predators, which causes a dip. And they both kind of start to increase and decrease at the same time because the relationship is for the predator, it is a direct relationship. So as you increase the number of prey, you can increase the predators that can eat them. But then as they decrease, one will decrease as well. So there are certain growth models that we need to make sure we understand. And the first one here is the exponential or J growth model, J-shaped. And the reason it's called J-shaped is because the curve actually looks like a J. There is no limiting factors. So if there's no limiting factors, then the population can continue to grow without worry of a carrying capacity, which is basically where it will plateau. You then also have logistic growth, which looks like an S. So very like odd shaped S here. Okay. Because the limiting factors are in every community, the exponential growth will not occur. And there are fluctuations in population size once a population reaches or nears carrying capacity. And this is caused by those limiting factors. So carrying capacity is right kind of up here on this baseline, it looks like, sort of. And then you've got those fluctuations due to those limiting factors, those like zigzags at the top. So exponential growth means that as a population gets larger, it also grows at a faster rate, which should make sense because if the population gets larger, there's more chance for mating and reproduction, which then will just cause it to grow faster, grow larger even faster. Slow growth to begin with, okay, as you're building up the population, followed by rapid growth that will continue when there is no limitations placed upon the population. So again, we talked about with logistic growth, we do see carrying capacity, and this is defined as when a population reaches the maximum size that the environment they're in can support. So eventually, the environment cannot support anymore. Well, then we're going to start seeing depletion of resources. We're going to start seeing depletion of space, and that will cause this number to decrease because they will not be able to survive. So let's just look back over some definitions here. So looking at a population, remember that's the number of organisms of one species living in an area at a given time. And population size for any population is influenced by the environment and those limiting factors in the environment. So limiting factors can then be kind of broken up into different types. So we've got density dependent, which have an increasing effect with an increasing population. So the bigger the population, the bigger the effect. So disease, competition, predators. For instance, like just as an example, let's say you're a farmer, you have someone that, or a cow that has mad cow disease. Well, if you don't have many cows, as much as it would suck, you probably will lose all of those cows. But if you like make a living off of having cattle, and you have hundreds and hundreds of cattle, and that spreads to all of them or a good majority of them because there is a bigger population for that disease to spread. And then also, competition for resources, predators as they come in and can eat the population that you've got. And then you've got density independent, which means it will affect the population no matter how big or small it is. It'll have the same effect. And these tend to be like natural disasters. So storms, floods, hurricanes, fires, right? Anything like that. It's going to hurt the population no matter how big or small it is. So how do all of these factors affect population? So all limiting factors reduce population size. They keep them from getting too big. And then what happens when a population reaches its size limit or its carrying capacity in an environment? So like we said, the maximum amount of a population that can fit in an environment is known as the carrying capacity. And if the population rises to that or above that, the organisms will die because of those limiting factors that are coming in. So now let's talk a little bit about human growth. So humans have the ability to control the environment, whereas, animals cannot, plants cannot. Because of this, it's hard to determine the actual carrying capacity of the earth for humans. But, we have billions and billions of humans on this earth. Do you think that we will ever reach that carrying capacity? So here's just a picture of the world population growth here for historical estimates. So it shows by the billions in these 2000s, where we're at. Which, I guess we're a little bit further past this, but we're just over 9 billion people in the world. And here it looks like the lightly covered areas indicate a dense population. So you can see where people are located all over the planet. And then areas where they're not located. So let's talk quickly about age structure diagrams. So you will see some of these pop up. So one of them is Cambodia, one of them is the United States. So Cambodia is a developing country, so there are lots of births, but many do not reach old age. Since it's a developing country, they don't have, access to the medicine or resources that they would need to be able to live a very long age. So as you can tell, the range is very big here at the bottom, which is where the ages are smallest, but they get much, much, much smaller the higher up you go. But then since the U.S. is a developed country, the population is relatively stable, basically all the way up until the right around like 75 to 79, and then it starts going down. It goes down gradually before that as well, but Developing countries versus developed countries. So, developing countries have a sudden increase or decrease in population due to some limiting factors that hit them harder than they would in developed countries. So, remember that since exponential growth is slow growth at the start and then rapid growth as that population starts to increase on its own, and a result of this is unchecked growth. So it's not being monitored or stabilized by limiting factors. And why can this growth not continue forever? Because we will run out of those resources, or that species will run out of the resources that it needs. It will have to reach a carrying capacity. So let's talk a little bit about that in terms of the legend of Easter Island. So you've seen the Easter Island heads before. And in 1500, an estimated 10,000 people lived on that island. But by 1872, only 111 people lived on the island. And from 1500 to 1600, the Rapanui used all of the trees in the island for shelter, fishing, and firewood. So they started to establish on the island. Most of the animal species left on the island were hunted into extinction, which caused the Rapanui to die out due to starvation because they